A woman becomes a substitute for her sister, who fled an arranged marriage. She ends up in a contractual divorce with her indifferent groom. The handsome Yoon Sok is a flawless spokesperson for the president's office. Soo Bin, his wife, keeps their relationship a secret from outsiders. She works as a part-time sign language translator at a radio station. One rainy evening while driving home, Soo Bin notices her car shaking uncontrollably. She tries to brake, but it doesn't work. Instead, the car speeds up. It turns out a mysterious person has taken control of her vehicle. As the car gains speed and approaches a red light, she has no choice but to run the light, narrowly avoiding a collision. The car eventually stops on its own, but when she tries to get out, she finds the doors locked. She then spots the mysterious person controlling her car, walking toward her. Shortly after, Yoon Seok receives a call from the mysterious person, who seems to be threatening him. However, when Yoon Seok's phone runs out of battery, he uses the opportunity to call Yeon Hee. Yeon Hee lies, saying Soo Bin is with her having dinner, which leads Yoon Seok to think the threats are trick. The mysterious person calls again, but Yoon Seok, now unbothered, dismisses the threats, believing the person doesn't even know who his wife is. Just as he is about to hang up, the caller reveals they are holding a knife to his wife's throat and can kill her at any moment. Yoon Seok coolly tells them to go ahead and stop lying. Angered by his response, the mysterious person tries to strangle Soo Bin with a rope, causing the car to veer out of control. Eventually, they let go and make another call to Yoon Seok, who still refuses to answer. Furious, the mysterious person stabs Soo Bin's seat in frustration, but accidentally injures her neck. In a panic, they confess that the phone they gave Soo Bin was modified to only call Yoon Seok with disguised voice modulation. Despite all this preparation, Yoon Seok still refuses to answer. In Yoon Seok's office, someone accidentally answered the mysterious person's call. Once connected, Yoon Seok dismissively told them that if they were going to harm his wife, they should hurry up and do it, then call him once she's a corpse. He ended the call without hesitation. This infuriated the mysterious person, but even more so, it deeply hurt Soo Bin. Tearfully, she pressed hard on the accelerator, pushing the car to dangerous speeds. The mysterious person tried to stop her, but the car became uncontrollable, spinning wildly after hitting a bump. The mysterious person fainted on the spot. The scene shifts. A pair of legs step gracefully out of the car. It's Soo Bin, unharmed. She makes it home safely and wraps her injured neck with a bandage. Moments later, a car pulls into the driveway. Although Yeon Hee had assured him earlier that Soo Bin was dining with her, Yoon Seok was still worried and rushed home to check on her. Seeing Soo Bin safe and sound, he breathed a sigh of relief and mentioned the scam call he'd received. However, Soo Bin ignored him, still upset by his cold indifference earlier. Noticing Soo Bin's odd behavior, Yoon Seok grew suspicious. Didn't Yeon Hee say she was having dinner at her parents' house? Soo Bin refused to explain and went to her room, where she received another call, this time from her mother-in-law, asking why she hadn't visited the fertility clinic recently and commenting on the lack of progress with her pregnancy. Soo Bin hid her phone under the pillow. She reminisced about her wedding 3 years ago. She was nothing more than a substitute bride after her sister fled an arranged marriage. Her union with Yoon Seok was a loveless family arrangement, with their wedding kept private and her identity as his wife unknown to the public. This realization led Soo Bin to make a decision to take control of her life. That evening, Soo Bin accompanied Yoon Seok as a sign language interpreter for an ambassador's wife. Meanwhile, the scammer called again, taunting Yoon Seok by saying they were at the same party. Yoon Seok was startled and scanned the room nervously, doubting the caller's ability to enter such an event. But then the scammer described the truffle dessert in front of him, making it clear they were indeed watching. Realizing the danger, Yoon Seok panicked. As he searched the crowd, he spotted someone on a phone and followed them to the restroom, barging in. However, the voice from the phone didn't belong to the person he confronted. Yoon Seok grew increasingly desperate, fearing that the mysterious person might truly harm Soo Bin. As he continued to search, he questioned the caller about how they knew so much about him and his wife. The mysterious person revealed shocking details about Soo Bin's sister's escape from the arranged marriage and mocked Yoon Seok for marrying his sister-in-law for the sake of family alliances. At this moment, Yeon Seok was genuinely afraid. He finally asked the mysterious person what they wanted. The scene then shifts, revealing that the mysterious person was actually Soo-bin herself. She had been the one talking to her husband all along. That night, she was supposedly kidnapped. However, Yeon Seok still didn't answer her calls. Furious, Soo-bin sped up the car, which caused the so-called kidnapper to faint during the chaos. Taking advantage of the situation, Soo-bin managed to get hold of the kidnapper's phone. What shocked her the most was hearing Yeon Seok later claim that he would never abandon her. Soo-bin bitterly laughed, recalling how just the night before, he had told the mysterious caller to wait until his wife's body showed up before calling him again. The scene then shifts to Soo-bin wearing lingerie her mother had gifted her, a gesture meant to help her build intimacy with her husband. But instead of using it to rekindle their relationship, Soo-bin intended to use it to push for a divorce. She took pictures of herself and used the modified phone she had obtained from the kidnapper to send a cryptic message to Yeon Seok, claiming she had incriminating evidence against his wife. However, Yeon Seok, thinking the photos were from the internet, brushed it off. Angered, Soo-bin snapped, exclaiming that the legs in the photo were hers and challenging him to see for himself if he didn't believe her. As she hung up, she began to regret her actions. It was revealed that Soo-bin had planned the entire scheme to escape her loveless family-arranged marriage. Using the kidnapper's customized phone, she threatened Yeon Seok with exposing their family scandal unless he agreed to divorce or pay her $2 billion. However, Yeon Seok refused to compromise. Frustrated and unsuccessful, Soo-bin tried to leave, only for Yeon Seok, who had no idea she was behind the plot, to spot her. He took her to a secluded place to check her injuries. Seeing the wounds, he finally realized that his wife had indeed been involved in a kidnapping ordeal. Furious, he questioned why she hadn't told him the truth earlier. Yeon Seok arranged for bodyguards to protect Soo-bin after the incident. One day, while Soo-bin was working as a sign language interpreter for people with disabilities, she went to the restroom and noticed a mysterious figure nearby. This reminded her of the night she was kidnapped. Shortly after, her bodyguards realized Soo-bin had disappeared. They quickly informed Yeon Seok, who received a text message and looked visibly worried. However, the bodyguards soon updated him, saying they had found her. Soo-bin was with a man. Yeon Seok furrowed his brows upon hearing this and asked, "What kind of man? What does he look like?" It turned out the man wasn't the kidnapper, but Soo-bin's ex-boyfriend. The bodyguards sent photos of Soo-bin talking with the man to Yeon Seok. In the photos, Yeon Seok noticed that Soo-bin, who rarely smiled, was actually smiling at this man. Hearing the bodyguard's description of the stranger only made him more unhappy. The man's name was Sang-woo, and he had once been in love with Soo-bin. Seeing her again after 3 years made him overjoyed, but Yeon Seok was clearly upset to see his wife talking to another man. Meanwhile, Soo-bin returned home to find her mother waiting for her. Her mother had brought supplements and a gifted piece of lingerie, hoping to encourage her to have a baby. Soo-bin was not pleased. "Are you really my mother?" she said. In truth, Soo-bin was not her biological daughter but an adopted one. Her adoptive mother reminded her, "You chose to marry Yeon Seok in place of your sister as part of the family arrangement, all so your ailing father could stay in a quality nursing home." This was Soo-bin's weak spot, and she couldn't defy her adoptive mother's wishes. After taking a shower, Soo-bin stared at the lingerie in her hands before reluctantly putting it on. Soo-bin wanted a divorce, but Yeon Seok had to be the one to propose it for it to work in her favor. To achieve this, she planned to use the kidnapper's phone to threaten him. At 10 p.m., she called Yeon Seok and demanded, "Have you decided? Divorce me or pay $2 billion. But Yeon Seok remained steadfast in his refusal. Frustrated, Shiju resorted to more measures. She sent him a photo of herself in the lingerie, threatening to use it to create a scandal if he didn't comply. This explained the lingerie incident at the beginning. However, Yeon Seok still showed no interest. The scene shifts to Yeon Seok returning home. He opened the door to Soo-bin's bedroom, where she was hiding under the covers. Just as Yeon Seok was about to pull the blanket away, Soo-bin held onto it tightly. Seeing her resistance, Yeon Seok increased his strength, which led to a dramatic outcome. This scene left Yeon Seok feeling awkward, so instead of verifying anything, he went to the kitchen to get a drink of water. While there, He noticed the dining table and was reminded of the past. 3 years ago, when they had just gotten married, Soo-bin would cook meals and wait for him to come home, trying her best to play the role of a perfect wife. However, Yeon-seok saw through her efforts, realizing they were not genuine. He told her there was no need to pretend or follow her mother's orders. After that, Soo-bin stopped putting effort into their relationship. Since then, the two had been emotionally distant. Yet, something about recent events seemed to change things. One morning, Yeon-seok waited for Soo-bin to wake up, and even made her a lavish breakfast. In reality, he wanted to ask her about the man she had met. Soo-bin explained that he was just a senior from her university, but Yeon-seok was still doubtful. He later sought advice from a friend, asking what such situations might indicate. The conversation reminded him of the surveillance footage he had reviewed during the investigation into Soo-bin's kidnapping. He recalled the strange music playing in the car as Soo-bin was taken. His friend's words made him more suspicious, and he decided to confront the mysterious person threatening them that evening. At 10 p.m., while Yeon-seok was on the phone with the kidnapper trying to uncover the truth, a sudden explosion sounded through the line, cutting the call. When Soo-bin tried to call him back, his phone was turned off. Returning home, she anxiously searched for Yeon-seok, but could not find him. She stayed on the couch, waiting through the night. By morning, Soo-bin woke up and turned on the TV, only to hear devastating news. Yeon-seok's workplace had been bombed, resulting in casualties. The police revealed that a mysterious individual had planted the bomb and had a history of threatening Yeon-seok. To her shock, the news broadcast also played an audio recording of a phone call in which Soo-bin was allegedly threatening Yeon-seok. Stunned, Soo-bin couldn't believe what she was hearing. She had never done such a thing. Just then, Yeon-seok returned home. Looking shaken as though he had narrowly escaped death, he walked toward Soo-bin. Seeing her panic-stricken expression, he pulled her into his arms and lifted her onto the table. There was something he needed to confirm to clear his suspicions. He had to examine Soo-bin's thigh. Yeon-seok's hand traced along his wife Soo-bin's thigh, but with every inch closer, she trembled uncontrollably. The tension between them was obvious, and Soo-bin, bound to Yeon-seok through an arranged marriage, finally pushed him away in frustration. Soo-bin gestured her frustration, seemingly asking what he was trying to confirm. Yeon-seok, driven by doubts, admitted he wanted to verify whether the photo of her thigh, allegedly sent by the kidnapper, was genuine. But Soo-bin's resistance made him hesitate, and eventually, he gave in. Soo-bin sighed in relief, knowing she had narrowly avoided exposure. After all, the kidnapper was her. She had staged the whole thing, including the thigh photo, as a desperate attempt to provoke Yeon-seok into divorcing her. However, her relief was short-lived. Yeon-seok take away her phone, suspecting it had been hacked. Panic, Soo-bin quickly turned off the burner phone she had used to impersonate the kidnapper. Meanwhile, Yeon-seok couldn't resist scrolling through her messages. Among them, he stumbled upon chats with her former university senior, Sang-woo. Finding out that Sang-woo clearly harbored feelings for Soo-bin. Consumed by jealousy, Yeon-seok noticed that Sang-woo had invited Soo-bin to dinner. Coincidentally, one of Yeon-seok's juniors had also asked him to dinner at the same time and place. As fate would have it, Soo-bin was already at the restaurant dining with Sang-woo when Yeon-seok arrived shortly after. Hearing his voice, Soo-bin immediately realized he was there. Although their marriage was merely an arrangement and their relationship unknown to the public, Soo-bin had no intention of acknowledging Yeon-seok in front of others. She decided to pretend she hadn't noticed him. Yeon-seok walked over to greet them, causing the four of them to sit together. Sang-woo, who secretly had feelings for Soo-bin, had prepared food specifically for Soo-bin at the table. When Yeon-seok noticed this, he became irritated and immediately considered Sang-woo to be a suspicious figure, possibly connected to the kidnappers. An awkward tension filled the air as Soo-bin, frustrated, demanded to know why Yeon-seok was present. Was he using his phone to monitor her? Did he suspect something between her and her senior? Soo-bin tried to explain that Sang-woo wasn't involved, but before she could finish, Yeon-seok grabbed the phone, already suspicious of the situation. Despite knowing each other for years, Yeon-seok felt betrayed and confused by Soo-bin's behavior. Yeon-seok, in his own way, was trying to care for Soo-bin. He had arranged for her to work as a sign language translator in the president's office. But ever since the kidnapping incident, Yeon-seok had been using the threat of the kidnappers to control the situation. However, when Soo-bin tried to leave the parking lot, the gate automatically closed and the car's radio turned on, signaling that the kidnappers were still in control of her vehicle. Thankfully, a parking lot employee helped her get out, and she quickly drove away to confront the burner phone from the kidnappers. Meanwhile, Yeon-seok received a call from Soo-bin, urgently asking him to let her go and finalize the divorce. But this time, Yeon-seok questioned Soo-bin. What would you gain from this separation? Soo-bin couldn't answer, and Yeon-seok coldly remarked that the kidnappers would not get what they wanted. He hung up the phone, leaving Soo-bin confused about his intentions. Back home, Yeon-seok told Shiju that he wasn't going to divorce her. He casually made up a reason, saying he didn't want his reputation tarnished, but his real reason for not wanting a divorce became clear through his actions. Yeon-seok, after giving Soo-bin a gift, unexpectedly lay down on Soo-bin's bed. After turning off the lights, Soo-bin, irritated, immediately turned them back on. Enraged, she grabbed a pillow and lay down at the edge of the bed. But when Yeon-seok faced her, she turned to the other side. After some time, Soo-bin reluctantly complied and turned back toward Yeon-seok. Yeon-seok then explained that because the kidnappers had tracked down his office and could find their home, it was safer for him to stay with her that night. Soo-bin, looking at Yeon-seok, felt a sense of security and finally fell asleep. As she slept, memories from her past resurfaced, specifically when she had been adopted by the wealthy family after a tragic accident that claimed the lives of the biological children. She was left unharmed, which caused her to be seen as a potential threat to the family. Meanwhile, the kidnappers that lost his special phone. When Soo-bin answered a call from her father, she realized it was the kidnapper on the line. Terrified, Soo-bin tried to make sense of the situation. The kidnappers, happy with Soo-bin's response about wanting to divorce Yeon-seok, encouraged her to continue using the phone. Later, Soo-bin arrived at the hospital, relieved to find her father was safe. However, as she was being escorted by police to the station, Soo-bin recalled the threats and began to feel nauseous, eventually breaking down in tears. She reflected on how her life had never been easy and how no one had ever truly stood by her. As Soo-bin sobbed, a car approached through traffic. It was Yeon-seok, who had come to find he, although Soo-bin didn't understand why he was there. The police asked Yeon-seok about his relationship with Soo-bin. It was the first time he openly acknowledged in front of others that Soo-bin was his family, his wife. Yeon-seok was also considering relocating his father-in-law for safety reasons, but Soo-bin, still pretending to be mute, was emotionally devastated. Her pain shocked Yeon-seok, and for the first time, Soo-bin's tears made Yeon-seok feel a sense of relief. They arrived at a luxurious hotel where Yeon-seok had planned to have dinner with his parents. Although Yeon-seok knew Soo-bin was in a poor state, he called for some typical treatments for her to rest before joining them later. Yeon-seok then went downstairs to meet his parents, who were displeased by Soo-bin's absence. Yeon-seok, however, remained calm and explained that he was taking care of his wife. Meanwhile, Yeon-seok's father, who clearly disapproved of Soo-bin, questioned if he had received any news about her sister, implying that Soo-bin's family was problematic. Yeon-seok was angered by his father's comments and snapped, opening the door and demanding a camera. He realized that his father had staged the situation to embarrass him in the media, planning to take photos that would be used for tomorrow's news. Yeon-seok knew this move. As Yeon-seok was about to leave with Soo-bin, his father angrily threw a wine glass at him. Yeon-seok immediately reacted to protect Soo-bin, revealing the strained relationship between father and son. In the elevator, Yeon-seok was still on high alert, protecting his wife as the tension between the family members escalated. Yeon-seok firmly held Soo-bin's hand and said with certainty, "You must want to divorce me." He urged her not to let others' words affect her or weigh on her heart. Soo-bin, touched by Yeon-seok's unusual sincerity, found her perception of him beginning to change. When they returned home, Soo-bin decided to throw away the burner phone she had used to impersonate the kidnapper, symbolizing her decision to stop trying to push for a divorce. However, as she was about to discard it, Yeon-seok stopped her, insisting that he would take out the trash instead. This led to a light-hearted scuffle between the two. Their playful moment was interrupted by a phone call. The caller wished Soo-bin good luck for her interview the next day as a sign language interpreter at the presidential office. While Soo-bin was happy about the opportunity, she was also apprehensive. If she got the job, it would mean working closely with Yeon-seok, something both their families would disapprove of. But Yeon-seok reassured her, encouraging her to pursue her dream and not to give up because of what others thought. The next day, during the interview, Soo-bin was tasked with translating a news report into sign language. To her surprise, the news clip shown was from a press conference held by Yeon-seok 4 years ago. Recognizing it immediately, Soo-bin confidently delivered her translation, even staying a step ahead of the audio. Observing from afar, Yeon-seok noticed something unusual about her skill and rushed to the interview site. Confronting Soo-bin, Yeon-seok asked how she could interpret his speeches so precisely, even anticipating his words before he spoke them. He challenged her to translate other clips of his past press conferences. To his astonishment, Soo-bin flawlessly signed each one, timing her translations to precede his speech. When pressed for an explanation, Soo-bin admitted that through careful observation of Yeon-seok's mouth movements, she could predict the sounds and words he was about to say. Surprise, Bae Si-yoon decided to test her abilities further. He delivered an impromptu speech on the spot and asked Soo-bin to interpret it. The speech turned out to be a heartfelt confession, something only Soo-bin seemed to truly understand, while the others present couldn't grasp its emotional depth. Upon leaving the interview venue, Yeon-seok reflected deeply. The scene shifted to an airport, where Soo-bin's older sister Yuri had just returned. When Soo-bin was unexpectedly hired as a sign language interpreter at the presidential office, Yeon-seok secretly rejoiced. Seeing her name on the list, he was reminded of their first encounter 20 years ago. Back then, Yeon-seok disliked attending banquets and the people present, but his mother had forced him to eat, claiming it was his duty as a substitute for his brother, who enjoyed fish. This hinted at Yeon-seok's own position as a stand-in within the family, and during the banquet, he noticed Soo-bin, a girl who also seemed out of place. As an adopted daughter brought along as part of her mother's dowry, her mother frequently compared her to her older sister. Witnessing this, Yeon-seok secretly gave Soo-bin the food he disliked, and in turn, Soo-bin wrote her name in Yeon-seok's palm. Now, 20 years later, they had become a contractual couple. Yeon-seok received a text message from Soo-bin thanking him for transferring her father to a better nursing home. The message brought Yeon-seok immense joy. However, just then, a notification about Yuri's return popped up on Soo-bin's phone. Realizing that her place as Yeon-seok's wife was always meant for her sister, Soo-bin retrieved the burner phone she had discarded earlier. Not long after, Yeon-seok received a call from the so-called kidnapper, who was actually Soo-bin. She demanded that Yeon-seok explain why he, as Soo-bin's husband, had accepted her as a replacement in the first place. Before Soo-bin could finish her thought, Yeon-seok interrupted her. He revealed to Soo-bin that she had met Yuri once when she ran away from her wedding. Soo-bin was shocked, but Yeon-seok continued, explaining that he and Yuri had struck a deal that ensured Yuri could never become Yeon-seok's wife. This interested Soo-bin's curiosity. The scene shifted to the 70th anniversary celebration of Soo-bin's adoptive father's company. Soo-bin attended the event but was quickly pulled aside by her mother, who criticized her appearance. Her mother even tore off her coat in anger. In the restroom, Soo-bin overheard some women mocking her, calling her gloomy and questioning why she had even attended the banquet. These cruel words crushed her. At the event, Soo-bin felt completely ignored, while her husband basked in the spotlight, surrounded by admirers. Feeling inferior, she retreated to the balcony. At 10 p.m., she used the burner phone to call Yeon-seok, asking if he had been upset when Yuri ran away from the wedding. Yeon-seok responded indifferently, confirming her suspicion. Hearing this, Soo-bin began berating herself over the phone. She admitted she felt useless, unworthy of being in the spotlight. She referred to herself as a mere replacement for Yuri, who was the true daughter cherished by their parents. However, Yeon-seok, listening carefully, interrupted her. He reassured her, saying most people are just as dull and aimless as she felt. Money, while important, wasn't the only thing that defined one's worth. Yeon Seok's empathetic words shocked Soo-bin. Her contractual husband, of all people, seemed to truly understand her. Soo-bin couldn't help but ask the burning question, why did Yuri run away? She wanted to understand why someone so perfect would choose to abandon her responsibilities. Tears welled up as she pondered this, unaware that Yeon Seok had quietly approached her on the balcony. Turning around, Soo-bin was startled to see Yeon Seok. He noticed the burner phone in her hand and let out a cold laugh, realizing the truth. Soo-bin was the mysterious caller. The scene shifted once more. Yeon Seok visited the police station to follow up on the previous report Soo-bin had filed. There, he accidentally came across footage showing Soo-bin sitting in a car, seemingly in distress, as she struggled not to vomit. Watching the clip, Yeon Seok was stunned. His wife of 20 years, someone he thought he knew, had been pretending all along.